Welcome to Porch Play Chat, sponsored by the American Association for the Child's Right to Play, or more affectionately titled IPA USA. IPA USA is the USA affiliate of the International Play Association, and as part of our efforts to promote play, we've introduced Porch Play Chats, which are conversations with people who are just as passionate about play as we are. I'm Deb Lawrence, and with me on the porch is Kim Moroney. Hi, Kim.
Hi, Deb. So wonderful to be here with you. Thank you for the invitation.
So wonderful to have you. Kim is in Australia, just so you know. So we're hearing her from a land far, far away, and many hours on a flight. But Kim's qualifications include a Master of Educational Studies, a Bachelor of Education in Early Childhood, a Diploma in Religious Education, and a Diploma in Teaching. Her teaching and leadership experiences in prior to school and school settings include educator, director, coordinator, assistant principal, acting principal, and classroom teacher. Kim's study in Reggio Emilia, which is what I cannot wait to hear about, Italy, and Anji Play, all of those. And Anji Play, for those of you who don't know, is a province in China, has influenced her image of the child as a learner, researcher, theorist, and citizen. As Brother John Taylor Fellow, which is Kim's study experiences, took her to Finland, Sweden, China, and Peddle at the University of Cambridge, the significance of environments and transitions to and from school and the spirituality of the child have really been strengthened in her ability to travel and to see those projects. Kim has written early learning policy for school systems and created an action research project to support the positive transition to school of children and their families, and an action research project where she has developed the professional capability of leaders and teachers in better understanding the relationship between play, environments, and those transitions. Kim is an Honorary Associate Lecturer at the University of Newcastle. She speaks at national and international conferences, presenting her play research. And she came to our conference in South Carolina that was at the U.S. Play Coalition, and at the Hawaii International Education Conference. And of course, she was with us in Greenville in South Carolina last year, and she was at IPA World in Glasgow. So, oh my goodness. So what Kim is going to talk to us about today is the magic ingredient to support transitions to school is play. And can you tell me a little bit about the role of play in your life that made you go through all these fabulous experiences that led you to the work, and your whole career has just been incredible.
Oh, thank you. And I'm just so privileged to spend time with you. And I was thinking about, I used to talk about in my mind being a play advocate, but I guess I've been thinking more about being a play devotee. I think that all of us share this unique passion for child's rights, image of the child, and their biological right and the biological necessity for children and humans, us as adults as well, to follow our passions and be playful. So I think for me, I wonder why play has been such a passion in my life. I know I love to play. I recall my early childhood and what I used to play, the variety of things I immersed myself in when I played. But as an educator, and I've especially spent a lot of time in schools. So once the child steps over to the threshold of school, sometimes it's not been a continuity between that concept of early childhood 0 to 8. It's sometimes been seen as 0 to 5. And once that child moves into school, it's sometimes been that learning becomes different. So I guess I've tried to advocate passionately for play, the child's right to play and have playful environments and experiences in school settings. And I guess that's been informed by my time in schools. Especially as a kindergarten teacher, that's I guess my heart of hearts how I see myself and how I identify as a kindergarten teacher. So I think all those experiences with our younger citizens in a school context has led and pushed me further toward my love of play and my passion for play.
So what could we do differently? Because we have the same problem, even though unfortunately in the US, we're pushing it down into, toddler rooms, which is frightening.
Yeah.
And so how, as a play devotee, could we structure some sort of experiences for those who are making the decisions that are up here, who may have no early childhood experience or education within their degrees, who are only seeing, okay, we need to meet these test scores, or we need to do this or this, but don't really know how to do it. So what happens is, like, for example, the 4th grade reading scores came out in the US and everybody's all in a flurry. And I'm like, well, you've done it this way for 24 years. When are you ready to change what you're doing to get better test scores, right? Because what you're doing isn't working. So how do we create that kind of that? It's almost like a momentum where it just builds and builds and builds, like a snowball going down the hill. How do we get people to recognize that if you want this, this is how you get there? Because right now they're not getting it.
Yeah. It's challenging, isn't it? It's trying to get a voice for, especially in leadership. Sometimes I think, how do we get the information, the neuroscience, the research to politicians, and to make sweeping changes? But that sometimes feels so big. So I try to think about, what can I do in my local community? What can I do in my workplace? How can I engage people so that they're, 1, interested, and 2, willing to listen? And I think that's what I've tried to do. I've thought about the places that I've worked in, and I've had the privilege to be in schools and school systems, building relationships of trust, especially with leaders. And I've been fortunate that I've had leaders who have trusted me and have been willing to listen to me as I have presented research, as I've presented evidence-based practice. And I guess they've been able to see me in action, see what things can look like in a classroom situation, and being open and inviting people in. And, chipping away. And I know I chipped away for a very long time. Before that, I was invited to go into the system itself and write an early years policy and influence that way. So, and then what gradually happened is then spending time with leaders, with principals, with teachers, holding professional learning days and showing evidence, setting up spaces, showing video, showing data, showing photographs, and setting up provocations to say, look, we have a curriculum. In Australia, we have the Early Years Learning Framework, which is the national framework for children from birth to 5 years old. But it also is applicable for children as they transition into school. And then once children cross the threshold to school in my state, New South Wales, there's a curriculum with subjects or key learning areas, with outcomes, with content. And I try to talk about having a makeup kit of pedagogy that we pull out at different times for different purposes. So I'm aware that at times explicit teaching in a school setting, in a school context, is necessary, and it's what happens. But I'm also, as the teacher, I have a right and a responsibility to think about what pedagogy best serves the children in my class that I'm in deep relationship with, and I have an understanding of development in the early years. So what I try to do then is show how we re-image, and I guess it all boils down to our image of the child as well. If we're seeing children as capable and competent, and they're coming to us with strengths, and we want to learn about them, deeply know them, we make space for that, and we step back and we observe and we listen. But that links to our environment. You know, how are we setting up situations where the children have that autonomy to play, and what does that look like, and what does that mean?
And I think the beauty of what you just described is it all starts with building relationships, just like with children in a classroom. They may not have had you last year. And so if you're not in a program that continues from one grade to another with the same teacher, that looping that is so valuable. So they may not have had you last year. So they're walking in with no expectation or with no understanding of who you are as a person, and you don't know them. And I just remember when I was teaching the first 6 weeks, we played all day. I introduced, you know, how you slowly introduce centers and you don't have all your materials out yet, but you then bring out more materials as that 6 week goes. And they played and I observed. I needed to know where they were developmentally. I built relationships. We had fun. We did all of those wonderful experiences where they felt comfortable with me and I felt like I knew them better, right? Than when they walked in the door when we were all strangers with each other. And they felt safe and they felt respected and they felt nurtured. And then and we just played. That's I mean, we had centers, we played. And then after 6 weeks, I could then do those provocations. So I didn't know what to call them because I'm old back then. But, you know, invitations that were placed out based on where some children were and where other children were so that people would gravitate to what it was they were interested in and be able to strengthen. But boy, I couldn't have done that or known what to do with them unless I'd had that 6 weeks of just playing. Just playing. That's all we did. Blocks, sensory, the book area, the science area. It was dramatic play was, you know, huge. All of those areas let me learn a little bit more about their interests, about what they were excited about things questions that they had, which just blossomed into those strong relationships of trust. And I was able to document for parents. Wow. So and so, when they walked in the door, was like this. And look, 4 weeks later, we're already here. I didn't have to use the curriculum that was handed to me. The curriculum wasn't written with knowing who was in my classroom. And so I think those are strategies, but I love how you were able to get to leadership by developing the trust so that then they relied on you because they knew you, just like children will trust you in a classroom when you're present and you're listening to them and you're following their lead and you're there, you're present with them, not hovering over them. It's just so important, that whole grounding right there that you gave us, and the similarity between a classroom of children and a classroom of administrators. I think it's really important.
And everything that you spoke about there about play and building relationship, but really importantly, building that environment of safety.
Mm.
You know, we open our hearts and our doors, our classroom doors, and with open arms to children, and to develop really sincere and authentic relationships with them. And we want them to feel, as they're stepping into a classroom, I feel safe. I'm creating over time for them, I hope to create over time for them a sense of belonging. I'm here and this is where I'm meant to be. And I'm with people who care about me, who are my friends. I want them to feel connected to the classroom, to the relationships, to the school. I want it to be inclusive and accepting. And I just want that deep connection. And it's so interesting because I think as children and families, the child and their family, as they're transitioning to school, I wanted their transition to be individual and unique for every child.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm supporting them to develop that sense of belonging. And I don't know when that's going to be because it's different for each of them.
Mm-hmm.
And in a way, they're reestablishing their sense of identity.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think about as they come into school, never before have they been called a student. And often in schools, the language is student. And then I think about all the language of transition, you know, spending time supporting children and their families, even know the language of school. And often in our societies, we're spending so much time rushing early childhood, you know, so that children are independently reading and things can be checked off and we've achieved this outcome. And we just want them to be immersed in an environment of oral language and communication, speaking, listening. We want them to be exposed to rich vocabulary. We want them to be supported in developing their social and emotional understandings. And all of that comes through play.
All of it.
All of it.
This has been the theme. I love Porch Play Chats when I'm taping several in a row on a given day because there always emerges a theme that is sort of runs through every single Porch Play Chat in each day. And I mean, it's I've been doing this since 2020, so it's amazing how it happens. And the theme today has been about rushing, you know, when will they be ready, right? So instead of recognizing that early childhood period is critical to that eventual school success later over here, but they don't need to read in kindergarten. They don't need to have flashcards in the toddler room. What they need is a teacher who is tuned in, who is grounded in child development, who is able to observe authentically, is able to describe and make learning visible to families and administrators if needed. That is where what children are actually, those foundational skills that they're actually developing, that are the prerequisites for what you want them to do when they are older. And some of the phrases that we've used today is it's not school readiness, it's brain and body readiness. And we're building that brain and body readiness in early childhood. And it doesn't mean, flashcards. It means play. It's child initiated play. That's how they're learning. And so, as we as we continue with this conversation, changing the way we describe what early childhood is versus that school readiness that everyone is trying to push down. I think maybe that will help us change some of the understanding, because I think when the neuroscience came out originally, and it was all wonderful, and those of us who were grounded in child development, we understood it, right? We understood, I see. So it's these early experiences that are building the connections. And if we strengthen certain connections, like trauma or abuse, then we're not strengthening the connections that children need to feel safe and secure and feel like they belong, right? But I think people who weren't grounded in early childhood education saw neuroscience as a way to speed up development.
Yeah.
They said, oh, they're so much smarter than we thought they were, so we can just push it down, right?
Mm.
Which is not working, right?
Yeah.
Because children are struggling because they hate school.
Yeah.
It's boring. I don't want to be in a large group all day long. I don't want to have to do all these worksheets. Because that's what some curriculum company has said will get kids ready. Oh, it's driving me crazy.
Yeah. And if we truly understand development, if we truly immerse ourselves in observation and listening, we can see what the children need and how capable and competent they are.
Yes.
And we make very intentional decisions not to give out worksheets, not to rush them through the day, making sure that we're spending time outdoors, making sure we're moving our bodies, the importance of movement, not sitting in front of a screen with Google slides, one after the other. We're very intentional with what we're doing, and teachers are doing that. I feel very hopeful that teachers are very aware of knowing deeply who they're in relationship with in the classroom, understanding curriculum, but understanding pedagogy and understanding development. And there is a shift, and I can see the intentionality around that, and making if we have this deep understanding of, I guess it's that Reggio influence of image, who is the child? What are their rights? What do they need? How will they tell us and show us? If we understand that, it changes every decision we make. It changes how we co-create things with the child. It's listening to their voice. It's following their footsteps. It's re-imaging our environment. It's making decisions about decluttering and having those rich, loose parts that children need to explore and to help express their theories. So I think our decision-making, sometimes we used to, I started teaching in the late 80s, and you'd go into your classroom, you'd set it up. And I think back to the time where I'm like, oh my goodness, I used to have a different, like, charts on the wall with, their birthdays. And I used to have different displays up. And I look back into that time when I was a young teacher, and I just didn't have the deep understanding and knowledge about what's best for children and what they need. I always put relationships first, but as you learn more and you grow more and you're the curious one, you're a researcher, and you research alongside your colleagues and alongside children, and they help us learn. And I think about how many blessings we have through being with children. What a privilege and what a joy. And I feel often that, they're my teachers.
Yes.
If we just listen.
yes, if you are present and not worried about looking at the clock and what you have to do next, I think,
Mm.
teachers would be so much happier. They would see the joy in what they're doing again, because right now they're feeling so pressured and they're feeling so anxious and they're afraid they're going to get in trouble, and they're they're not enjoying what they're doing, which is why we have such horrible turnover in the US, because they're not doing what they know they should be doing, right? Because they're afraid that the parents are not going to be happy because they're not sending home a worksheet every day, or
Mm.
the director is going to come in and say, I need your lesson plans and they need to be given to me a week before the the new week starts, even though you have no idea what your children are going to be interested in a week. And so I think the responsibility of teachers is to get back to doing what feels right to you, not what you feel like you have to do, so that you can regain that joy. And then you have a responsibility to being able to know enough child development that you're able to point out the
Yeah,
development that is happening in the classroom,
yeah,
not that they've learned their letters with flashcards, but look at the pre-writing stages that they're in. Look at how their pre-writing skills have changed over time because they're going through those developmental stages. Look at how their vocabulary has increased. Look at how their ability to interact with a peer and express themselves has grown. All of those, that's what you should be trying to make visible, not, the projects that we do for art or
yeah,
any of that, right? So, I think teachers would re-find their joy if
yeah,
we could just stop, if they could just decide, I'm not going to do that anymore because it's making children and me miserable,
yeah.
and I'm not building strong relationships. In fact, I'm correcting children and saying no a lot. That's not what young children need. That's not what teachers need. So we need to sort of say, okay, that this isn't working. We need to go back to what I know will work. And
And
I
that's what, look, you're so right, talking about the concept of joy. Um, because if our days are not joyful, and if children's days are not joyful, we're in big trouble. We are doing something very, very wrong. And that's one thing I would talk to teachers about, and speak about with children. What brought you joy today? Where are our joyful moments? Let's talk about our joyful moments. And if children are not leaving the classroom or going back to their families, talking about moments of joy throughout the day, the things that spark their curiosity, that they are interested in, the moments of laughter and abandon, and just that magic through play. If we're not having joy in our lives, there's something, our health, our well-being, our happiness is all impacted, and our academic brain. Our brain
mm-hmm,
doesn't work. We know it doesn't function without that feeling of I'm safe, I'm
mm-hmm,
accepted, I'm immersed, I'm interested, I'm curious. These are all the things that have to be our foundation, and it has to continue on. Um, and I think, Deb, also about the transitioning to and the transitioning through. We're thinking about, the kindergarten child moving into year one. And then again, their identity is changing. It's another new relationships, new environment, new curriculum, and then it continues and continues. So these conversations and the wonderful people that you get to speak to, and that theme that's running through, is so critically important to our children, but our profession, our direction in our communities and society, because it can be, we have to choose hope and we have to make intentional choices to choose joy and create joy.
Yes, absolutely. Because, and I mean, the statistics of children's anxiety and depression is, off the charts in the United States, because we're expecting them to do things that they're not yet developmentally ready for. And so that whole environment within the classrooms, within second grade classrooms or third grade classrooms or fourth grade classrooms, is that teachers feel like they're forced to do because the principal's going to come by with this checklist, is something that we also need to shift. Because when I did work with principals before COVID, and I had the privilege of being with principals, assistant principals, and superintendents for a week, and we did it over 3 blocks of time, but I had them for 5 days. And these people knew nothing about early childhood. They were secondary people or middle school people, and they had just been put into a primary grade school. And so they were like, I have no idea what I'm even supposed to be looking for. And so I would say, well, so describe to me a classroom that you would like to see. What do you want to see in a classroom? Oh, I want to see children engaged and excited and curious and happy. I don't want 15 kids to be sent to my office during a period because they're acting out. I want to hear children's voices, not the teachers' voices. I want to see children excited about going over and looking at a book. And I said, awesome. How are you assessing teachers? Oh, well, I have this form, and I said, so does that form have you assess anything about what you just described? And they said, no. I said, then that's what you need to change. So then we bring up the dispositions, right? So you describe to me of these positive dispositions: curiosity, exploration, discovery, joy, excitement, all of the positive dispositions of learning. But what you're seeing in the classroom are all these negative ones. And so what is that doing to your teachers and to children? So where is your focus as a leader? Do you want, as a leader, to tell teachers, this is what I'm looking for, and it's all the things that you just described to me? Or do you want teachers to continue down the path? That's what leaders do. They tell people what they want to see, not leave it to people's interpretation. So, those were powerful conversations for them to recognize that what they wanted wasn't what they were getting because of what they wanted.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So it's that too. They don't want teachers to be miserable. They don't want children to be in their offices, but we're on this like hamster wheel that we can't seem to get off of, because that's the way we've always done it. So, it's that changing of perspective, that shifting them to a more, a more joyful job for them. I mean, I feel so sorry for assistant principals, since they're the disciplinarians in the schools. What a miserable job.
Yeah. I think too, it's being brave enough to step into possibilities and saying, this is what we value. So if we value this, we have to create context and environment for that. And if we think a lot about risky play, well, take some chances, take some risks, because the benefits will be bountiful. And I guess I've been fortunate enough to work with leaders who have trusted, have taken risks. So we've stripped away children when they come into our spaces, that curriculum is pushed curriculum, meaning, you know, the programs, that the outcomes and the content that are part of syllabus, we've moved them to the side, and we welcome children through play and thinking about dispositions. So we're observing where our focus is on learning dispositions. It isn't, and everything they're doing through play, there's literacy and numeracy. It's just part of it. It's
part of it. It's integrated, right? It's not siloed by subject. They're doing all of that. You can find social studies, you can find fine motor, gross motor, you can find creativity, you can find approaches to learning, those dispositions. You can
all the STEM is there.
Language, you can find
everything. It's all there. We have to open our eyes and see it. And to your other point, that's when we started. It was strategic, you know, thinking about, okay, bringing people along the journey with you. You might start with a cohort of, you know, so many schools, and then they become the experts, and we know the children are the play experts. So our teachers become the advocates, and our teachers are showing the data, and our teachers are understanding the shift. And there's you can see the positive benefits. And then a situation where families are like, oh, I know that this is what's happening at this school. I want to go to this school. I want to enroll and that keeps leaders very happy. When people are interested in coming to your school and families are wanting to be there because of what's happening in the classrooms, on the playground, with teachers, in children and families, it's that whole context that it sparks, it's alive.
So what I'm hearing is that we need to think about the possibilities and what could be different. And then we need to find someone we trust to help us reach those possibilities. And then we need to go back to trusting teachers, because we don't trust them.
Yeah.
And why don't you trust them? You know, so they went to school for this. This is their profession. They know what they should be doing. You're just preventing them from doing it, and your outcomes are not what you want, not what they want, and certainly not what children deserve. Oh, Kim, this has been amazing. Thank you so much.
We could sit with cups of tea and talk all day.
All day long. All right, stay right there while I close this out. Don't go anywhere. So to learn more about IPA USA, please visit our website at ipausa.org. Up in that top right-hand corner, you'll find our Facebook, our Instagram, and our YouTube channel, and Spotify. So all 300 of the Porch Play Chats are being uploaded into Spotify. But if you're a friend, if you follow, if you subscribe to those other 3 platforms, magically, every Monday morning, a new Porch Play Chat will appear in your feed. Kim, thank you so much. I feel so refreshed with just the picture that you've created for us. And so thank you so much for coming.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me, and my special wishes to everybody out there. Thank you, Deb.
You're so welcome. So until next time you see us, keep on playing.